You can tell with your expert eye, but I suppose it's, as punters watching TV, we can tell when something's off, but we don't necessarily always know when it is.
Mm-hmm.
But I can't, and like from the outside, you might go, oh, it's one still. But what you have to do is boil the entire
Mm-hmm.
essence of what, of like, of the entire project down to like that one drop and the weight of that, and like capturing that in that beat, and you have a moment and it's fleeting and it's gone. um
Well, I suppose the truth of it really is that because I shoot hundreds of pictures every day, there's less of a boiling down and more of a just making sure that every scene is covered,
yeah.
and it's covered well, and it's covered, you know, empathetically, sympathetically, to make sure that I'm in it all the time.
Yeah.
And making sure that every bit of the acting is being recorded and documented properly within the scene. And then something will become iconic afterwards, because it becomes, once we get to know a character, we go like, oh, that's the shot. Or there'll be a moment during filming where something happens and you go, oh, this is the shot, or sometimes for me, the behind the scenes ones, I stare at people through a tube for 10 hours a day. You get to know them, and you kind of, it's weird because you're sort of like, it's like Rear Window, like Jimmy Stewart through the back window. And I'm kind of watching them, and I almost get to like know, oh, that's an iconic moment of that director or of that producer or of that person having a moment. I can tell, like, I'll take a behind the scenes photo of someone just having a thought, and I'm like, oh, that's the photo they'll use for awards season. So it's like, it's not just happening with the cast in front of me, it's happening like with the behind the scenes too. And I love getting a picture of a crew member where I'm like, oh, that she will love that, or he will love that. That's like a moment of them in it, concentrating, doing what they do best. And to me, that's a beautiful thing when you photograph somebody in the moment doing something great. I think people always say, oh, I look so tired. I was like, no, you look great at what you do, and that's impressive. So yeah, there's a lot of that happening on the daily, but I don't ever think like, oh, that's iconic. I don't. But in hindsight, other people will say it about a photograph. They'll say like, oh, that one of Daenerys with the horse, that's like the iconic picture of her. And I'm like, oh, good, I'm glad that's your iconic picture of your favorite character. That's cool.
Yeah. And in terms of, I suppose, in a way that, yeah, you're there, like almost omnipotent, capturing that moment in a way that is going to be used to help sell the show, to be the image that people have of the entire season. Is is there a different sort of culture on different types of projects? So something, like where you've a thousand crew and, another camera unit. Is something like that harder, or is it easier because it's more resourced?
I think that, so it's harder in terms of my resources, like how much energy it takes. Because on Thrones at one point we had like 3 units going at the same time. So that's a lot of like planning, logistics. Things change on the day. There's a 5-hour delay between us and New York for me to discuss that. So I've got to make decisions about where I'm going to go or what I'm going to shoot. So, I mean, my resources can be stretched quite a lot. But then on the flip side of that, there's never not anything to shoot. So me as a photographer, my portfolio is built like it's, exponentially. It's just constantly being added to with all of this cool stuff, this 360 degrees of art on an industrial scale, as my friend put it. It's, that, what a treat. So the bigger projects are great because there's constant stuff, but the smaller projects are lovely and intimate, so you maybe approach them differently and come away from it differently. I just did one called Victorian Psycho down in Dublin, and that was a perfect project. It was so lovely. It was a smallish crew, and we were in pretty much one location for most of it, and it was just nice. And it was, it wasn't these huge, vistas and hundreds of people and big giant, but it was just lovely. And the photos that have come from that, I'm really proud of, just as proud as I am of some huge project like Game of Thrones. But yeah, you just fall in love with everybody and everything every time you do a movie, I guess, or a TV show.
And do you have a special sort of kinship to filming things at home? Like, you're going and doing these big productions all over the world. Is it nice to, see the where you grew up, a whole, like a fantasy world for other people, to see it dressed and, like the masonry and
I think it's lovely. I know a lot of people roll their eyes like, oh, Game of Thrones, oh, tour buses and Game of Thrones. I just love that now when I go somewhere and I say where I'm from, I'm not met with a question about, everything that happened in the 70s, 80s, 90s. I met with somebody saying, oh, Game of Thrones is filmed there, I love that. And it's like, yeah, Game of Thrones is a TV show and it might not be the most meaningful thing to have a conversation about, but to me, people look at me differently when they mention that than the things that they would have mentioned previously. And that gives me it's weird that a TV show has given me a real sense of moving on. And people come here and they visit, and a lot of it is film tourism.
Yeah.
It's not Troubles tourism so much anymore. And, while that part of our lives is so important, this is like, it's almost just like somebody, like it opens a door into a future that we couldn't have imagined, if that makes sense. I'm not really very good at articulating this because I feel like I want to be careful.
Because it changed the entire industry.
Yeah.
Post everything upscaled across the entire island of Ireland. Like the entire island was sort of completely changed forever. It was like we would very unlikely be sitting in this room today having this conversation if it wasn't for that and for the ingenuity around the creatives at the top of the time saying like, let's keep post here, like let's keep it close. And like as a filmmaker, you could have someone in your film, like you could have somebody in your film that was a named actor, and even on a shorts field that helps promote your film. Like like there's all this, like there's these tentacles of positivity that just radiated from it. It was like, to say it was a game changer was just the understatement. I would say it was the birth of what we have today, is something quite robust.
And I do feel a sense of pride. There was always a film industry around Dublin, around the south, and that's great. But up here there was a little bit, but and then it was just like bam, and like you say, it just spread out.
But not at that scale, and not with those scale. People all the time. And it was just like maybe a bit of outdoor filming because it's a bit cheaper here or there, and everything done in Ardmore. Like that was, like, I would say, just completely changed everything.
Yeah. And I'm from further north than Belfast, so it was nice when we would go and film around the north coast, because that's where I spent so much time as a child. And you see that on television, and that tiny little, like, there's a place called Ballintoy Harbour, which served as Pike Harbour, which is where the Greyjoys live. And we spent so much time there as children on Sundays with my grandfather and my dad and my mum and my brother going to buy dulse, the seaweed. And then to see that on television and to know that all these eyes across the world are looking at that little harbour where you grew up as a kid, there's something in that's like, wow, my God, it's really out there now. I can't really put it into words. Somewhere like this ending up out there, it's very strange. It's a very strange feeling, but I'm the thing that fills me with pride more is seeing all the names on the credits year after year. HBO, when we were filming Game of Thrones, they never considered swapping out crew as it started to get more successful. You know, as when the pilot was over, when season 1, as it was like starting to just like, you know, go stratospheric, I assumed that I would be replaced by someone with more experience as it got bigger. I always had this feeling like, your days are numbered. They only got you because you're a local while it's little. And then I would have this conversation with Vicky, the photo editor, and Mara in publicity, and they would say, but why would we change you? Why would any of the crew change? Everybody works so hard, you know, and I do think there's a real culture of nothing is too much trouble. You know, and I think when people come here and they meet the crew here, it's this sort of like, yeah, no bother. That's no bother. You know, it's that, and it's like, oh, that's great, thank you. You know, there's a very welcoming atmosphere, and we want everything to succeed. We're just like, I remember at the start it was like everyone was so on board, like we've got to make it amazing and we've all got to work harder than we've ever worked, you know, and it worked.
Yeah.
We did work harder than we've ever worked, and continued to do so.
Yeah. And I wonder, is there an element of, like, because you hear that about Irish crews, and you'd hear that about Irish workers in other industries as well, like, you know, they put that time in, and is it that we are grateful?
I think we're underestimated a lot, and I think it doesn't. There's a funny thing happens here that with people here, that when you're underestimated, it doesn't break you. It makes you want to prove yourself. You know, I certainly know that that's how I feel. I remember somebody said to me once, "Oh, but who did they bring in for the big days?" And I said, "But why do you think that they did?" Because it's one of two things, or both.
Yeah.
There's no other reason for you to think that would be something that would be happening here.
Yeah.
And then as soon as I said it, the person said, "You know what? You're right. I'm really sorry. That was my prejudice at work there. I just assumed." And I was like, well, no, it's a conversation. So, you know, I was grateful that they were able to respond properly to my assessment of the question.
I suppose it's the best way and most positive way to, fight those negative conceptions, is just proving them wrong and being deadly and successful. And like on different projects you've worked on, in different spaces with different crews, like is that always the way? Like was there magic in a bottle there because that was like the first one? Is it just different in every experience? Is, you know, like if you're on a feature film, something that, like, you know, it's going to be over, like, you know, are people kind of more relaxed because it's not going to go longer? Like what is sort of your experience, like that shifting thing? Is there anything distinct about different kinds of projects?
Yeah, there is, but even then the formula doesn't work every time. You know, I think I know what to expect, and then I'm like, oh, actually no, it's changed again. Everything can change a project. One thing can change a project from something magic in a bottle to something not nice at all. It only takes one element to not be right. And I think when we were on Thrones, I think one of the things that made it magic in a bottle was that the showrunners, David and Dan, and all of the producers and everybody at HBO, they trusted us.
Yeah.
Which I think a lot of people here hadn't experienced before, and a lot of them haven't experienced since.
Yeah.
Is that they were not micromanaged. It was just like, no, you just do your thing. You know, and it was like, wow, that's not what I expected. I didn't expect to be trusted to just work, you know, and it's such an amazing freedom to not know that you have to show the teacher your homework at the end of every day. It's just, they just trust you.
But you get so much more out of people when they are confident and when they have ownership over it.
Yeah.
So that's why people are going to work 10 times harder. But I suppose, if someone is like, if you are micromanaged, you're never able to do your best work because you're overly conscious, and then you're not delivering what is you think is best. It's what you think someone else thinks is best. And like, as someone who's sort of observing all the departments at all times, in a way, do you pick up on these things in those different spaces as well?
Absolutely. And I think I'm one of the very few people that gets to meet almost everyone. And I get to interact with almost everyone. So like the cast, the producers, the people in America or London or, you know, Prague or wherever the people are based, I get to deal with the offset gang too. I get to chat to everyone. I go around the departments to photograph behind the scenes, and I think that's a really rare gift that I'm given, is that I get to meet everyone. And so I also get all the gossip because and then I can be like, well, that's interesting because over in that department that was like, and then you start to see how everything is on the you get to see the full picture of what's happening on the ground. It's a really interesting position to be in, actually.
Yeah, so you and the sound people with the headphones you get together, write a book, and the whole industry is exposed. And in terms of, so like when you're on set, when you're there, what does like the best day look like? And you can give a specific example or a hypothetical, and you know, like by contrast, like what is a really tough day?
I think when there's so many things that can influence that tiredness. If we've done a really grueling few weeks, tiredness can affect that. I mean, we did like 55 night shoots in a row one year on Thrones, and I think by the end of that, I had expected the morale to be really low, but actually it was the opposite. It was like we were, you know, bonded by this kind of freezing cold nighttime life that we'd all suddenly find ourselves in. And for me, I love night shoots because that I feel like I'm a bit nocturnal. So for me, a good day can be a night shoot, but for someone else that can be a disaster. They can hate that. So my best day might not be someone else's best day. You know, and I do think that when the actors are having a really difficult scene, obviously everything quietens down. Everybody's respectful. And you know, if they're struggling, we're kind of along with them, so that can totally change the mood of a day. I've been on a job where, you know, lunch didn't get up the mountain, and that that ruined a lot of people's day. There was a lot of sharing of snacks that had been squirreled away. But you know, there's so many things that can change a day. But for me, a good day is when everybody's happy and I'm getting good material and the behind the scenes shots. I'm not avoiding anybody because they're in a bad mood. You know, they've got a big cross face. You know, so that's a good day for me is when I get lots of material and I know that everybody's having a good time. Like today on set, everybody was having a good time. And I walked out of there and I thought, God, this is so nice to be home working on this again, you know.
And what are those images or those moments that you are the most proud of in your career? You know, like that were there any particular moments, and like probably going on set for the first time, but you know, like that you really savor, because you know, sometimes you can, it is easy to get wrapped up in, you know, the slog of it, or you know, like in some instances, not you when you're successful, but you know, like you get maybe rejected a lot, or there's a lot of maybe disappointments where things look like you're going to get this and you don't. That, you know, like those beats where you get that moment and you really like savor it? Like, what would be those?
There's just been so many. Like I said to someone earlier, I'm so spoiled with proud moments. And I was not a good student at school. I struggled at university. I didn't think I would ever get a good job. And I just, if I could just go back and say to myself, actually, it's going to be mental. You're not even going to believe what's possible.
Yeah.
So I feel like I'm one of those people who just cries at everything. So every time something good happens, I'm like, oh, and I cannot watch Game of Thrones. I can't watch it because I'm so proud of it. And I feel really personally offended if somebody's like, oh, I'm not going to watch that. It's like, I'm like,
But it's their loss.
that's my, like, I can't even objectively watch anything that I work on. So I'm not sure if anything's good or bad or whatever, because I'm not watching that. I'm watching like, oh, that was the day Lisa had a really hard day, or that was the day we nearly, collapsed laughing at something stupid, or that's the day that person lost their mum or dad, or oh, that, and this is what I see when I watch the shows. So like the proud moments are so multifaceted and overwhelming that I can't even, I'm just thinking, like, as soon as you asked that, it's just like all these little moments just fly by, like, I mean, my daughter was in Game of Thrones very, very briefly, and that was a proud moment, to see her. I was like, oh, this is major, like when she's 18 or whatever, and she can watch this, it's going to be like so cool.
I think can't watch it until then.
It's a bit sexy, a bit violent, but or then when they brought out the stamps, like someone sent me a letter and it had a Game of Thrones stamp on it with my photograph, and I was like, whoa, it's almost, a lot of the moments are more surreal than proud, maybe. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
It feels enormous. This career that I've had unexpectedly feels enormous.
Because I would say in the Western world, it would be harder to find someone who doesn't know what Game of Thrones is than
probably
than does. Like over, like not young Gen Z, but like everyone of this era, it was a massive cultural moment.
It was massive, and it divides people a little bit, because some people are like, oh, and then other people love to tell you that they've never seen it and they hate it.
Oh, yeah.
And that's quite funny too, because it's like, well, that's okay. I'm not offended. Like, well, I am, but I'm not. But I am. Oh. So yeah, you're right. So many. It would be hard to find somebody who's not even just heard of it.
And like it is a tough, like you are up all those nights in a row, in the pits of winter, in the darkness, taking, like, it is a tougher form of photography. Have you ever considered to be like, oh, I'll give it all up now and like, I don't know, do something, do weddings now?
No. I love being outside.
Yeah.
I love it. I love the fresh air. That was one of, I actually said to my partner last week, I loved being outside. And whenever we're in the studio a lot, I'm like, oh, it's not quite as satisfying as getting out there and seeing your own country, because you get to go these little down windy roads to like private land where other people don't get to go, and you're like, wow, this is cool. This is like a little secret bit of the island that I didn't know about. But then I went off to work on foundation in it started off being down at Troy in Limerick, and then we moved out to Prague Studios in the Czech Republic, and it was weird because we were in outer space. So we were in spaceships in a studio, and initially I was like, oh, this is luxurious. I don't even need boots. I'm like, I don't need a raincoat. I'm just like dry all the time and warm. But then you get to a point where you're like, oh, but I miss the rain and I miss the mud. And that was kind of a bit of a bonding experience for the crew as well. Like, because everybody loves complaining about the weather. So yeah, it's funny.
Brilliant. And what next? What do you have a project on the horizon, or do you like to take little breaks in between?
Little breaks are funny because you kind of think you like to take them, and then if they go on a bit too long, it gets. But I'm back in Westeros on the second season of Night of the Seven Kingdoms.
Amazing.
So that is so nice to be home. I went last year. I didn't do season 1. I went to do Wednesday with Tim Burton, and of course that was, as a little goth, that was a lifelong dream to meet and work with Tim. Incredible. But I'm back home now in the rain and the mud, and it's exactly where I'm supposed to be.
It is indeed. Oh, thank you so much for chatting with us. That's amazing.
Thank you.